Emmanuel stood tall in his expensive black suit, looking down at the old woman in torn clothes who had just called him, "my son," in front of hundreds of people. The grand ballroom of the Lagos Continental Hotel was silent. Every guest at the charity gala froze, watching the richest man in Nigeria face this poor woman who claimed to be his mother. "Security!" Emmanuel shouted, his voice echoing through the room. "Remove this beggar immediately. I have never seen this woman in my life." The old woman's eyes filled with tears. Her weathered hands shook as she reached into her torn bag and pulled out a faded photograph. "Emmanuel, my son, it's me. Your mama Grace. Don't you remember?" But Emmanuel turned his back on her completely. "I said remove her. This crazy woman is trying to embarrass me at my own event." Two security guards grabbed Grace by her arms. As they dragged her away, she cried out one last time, "The scar on your left shoulder from when you fell as a child? Only your mother would know that." Emmanuel's blood ran cold. How could this stranger know about his most private secret? But it was too late. Grace was already being thrown out into the rainy Lagos street, and what happened next would change everything. Grace Okoro was a young widow trying to raise her 5-year-old son Emmanuel in the slums of Mushin, Lagos. After her husband died in a car accident, she sold pure water on the streets to buy food for her boy. Their small room had no electricity, and they often went to bed hungry. Emmanuel was a bright child who loved to read. Even though they had no money for books, Grace would pick up old newspapers from the ground and teach him words. "One day, my son," she would say while cooking Gary with no meat, "you will be great. You will make Mama proud." But as Emmanuel grew older, he became ashamed of their poverty. He hated how other children laughed at his torn clothes and bare feet. He hated how his mother sold water under the hot sun while other mothers had proper jobs. When Emmanuel turned 18, a scholarship took him to America for university. Grace sold her only valuable thing, her wedding ring, to buy him clothes for the trip. At the airport, she hugged him tight. "Promise me you won't forget where you come from," she whispered. "I promise, Mama," Emmanuel said. But deep in his heart, he was already planning to leave his old life behind forever. In America, Emmanuel worked harder than everyone else. He studied business during the day and worked 3 jobs at night. He sent Grace small amounts of money, but his letters became shorter and shorter. After graduating, he started a tech company that grew bigger and bigger. Emmanuel changed his last name from Okoro to Davidson. He told everyone his parents died when he was young. He married Sandra, a beautiful American woman who came from a rich family. They moved back to Nigeria, where Emmanuel's company became worth billions. Grace tried to contact her son many times. She went to his company building, but security never let her pass the gate. She wrote letters, but they were thrown away. She called his office, but his secretary always said he was busy. For 15 years, Grace heard about her son only on television and in newspapers. She watched him open schools and hospitals. She saw him win awards and shake hands with presidents. She was proud, but her heart was breaking. "My Emmanuel has forgotten his poor mama," she would cry alone in her small room. On this night, Emmanuel was hosting his biggest charity event ever. The theme was Hope for the Poor, and tickets cost 1 million naira each. All the important people in Lagos were there: governors, senators, movie stars, and business owners. Emmanuel wore a suit that cost more than most people earned in a year. His wife Sandra sparkled in diamonds. They smiled for cameras and gave speeches about helping the less fortunate. "Tonight, we remember those who have nothing," Emmanuel said into the microphone. "We must lift up the poor and show them love." Grace had heard about the event on radio. She used her last money to take a bus to Victoria Island. She stood outside the hotel in the rain, watching rich people enter in their fine cars. "That's my Emmanuel," she whispered to herself, seeing her son on the red carpet. "He looks just like his father." A kind security guard felt sorry for the old woman and let her inside to dry off. Grace stood quietly in the corner, just happy to see her successful son. But when Emmanuel asked if anyone had questions about helping the poor, Grace's heart spoke before her mind could stop it. She walked slowly to the front of the room. Every eye turned to watch this poor woman in torn clothes among all the rich people. "My son," she said softly, looking directly at Emmanuel. "My dear son Emmanuel." And that's when everything went terribly wrong. The room exploded with whispers and gasps. Emmanuel's face turned red with anger and embarrassment. The cameras were rolling, catching every second of this shocking moment. What would happen next would destroy Emmanuel's carefully built life in ways he never imagined possible. The video went viral within hours. Someone at the gala had recorded everything on their phone: Emmanuel calling his own mother a beggar, security throwing her out into the rain, and Grace crying his name as she was dragged away. By morning, the video had millions of views. #Emmanuel denies his mother was trending across Nigeria. People were furious. Comments poured in from around the world. "How can a man throw away his own mother like garbage? This is the most heartless thing I've ever seen. Emmanuel Davidson is a fake. He talks about helping the poor but hurts his own mama." Emmanuel woke up to hundreds of missed calls. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. His wife Sandra was crying in their bedroom, reading all the angry messages online. "Emmanuel, how could you do that to your own mother?" Sandra asked through her tears. "I thought your parents were dead." "She's not my mother," Emmanuel shouted, but his voice was shaking. "That woman is just trying to get money from me." But Emmanuel knew the truth. The scar she mentioned, how could a stranger know about that? Only his mother knew how he got it when he fell from a mango tree at age 6. By afternoon, journalists had found Grace. She was back in her small room in Mushin, still wearing the same torn clothes from the night before. Cameras crowded around her tiny space as she showed them old photos of baby Emmanuel, his school reports, and the letters he used to send. "This is my son when he was 5, Grace said, holding up a faded picture. "See how he's smiling? He was such a happy boy before poverty made him sad." The reporters asked her why she went to the gala. "I just wanted to see him," Grace said simply. "I'm old now. I won't live much longer. I just wanted my son to know I'm proud of him before I die." One journalist asked if she was angry. Grace shook her head. "How can a mother be angry at her child? I'm just sad that success made him forget love." Meanwhile, people who knew Emmanuel from childhood came forward. His old neighbors, teachers, and friends all confirmed the truth. Emmanuel Okoro, son of Grace, had indeed become Emmanuel Davidson the billionaire. Emmanuel's business started falling apart. Customers canceled their contracts. His employees were ashamed to work for him. The government threatened to take away his company licenses. His board of directors called an emergency meeting. "Emmanuel, you need to fix this now," said Mr. Johnson, his business partner. "We're losing millions every hour this story stays in the news." "But she's just," Emmanuel started. "She's your mother." Mr. Johnson slammed his hand on the table. "Everyone knows it now. The whole world has seen the proof." Sandra packed her bags that same evening. "I can't stay married to a man who throws his mother away like trash," she said. "What if we have children? Will you throw them away too when they embarrass you?" Emmanuel was alone in his mansion, watching his life crumble on television. 3 days later, Emmanuel's security called him. "Sir, there's an old woman at the gate. She says she says she needs to see you." Emmanuel's heart stopped. It was Grace. This time she looked even more tired. Her eyes were red from crying and she could barely walk. "What do you want from me?" Emmanuel asked coldly when she was brought to his living room. Grace sat down slowly and pulled out a small envelope. "I came to give you this," she said. and to say goodbye. Inside the envelope was her wedding ring, the same ring she had sold years ago to buy him clothes for America. There was also a note. "I bought this back last week," Grace explained. "I've been saving small money for 5 years to buy it back from the man I sold it to. I wanted to give it to you as a gift, to show you how proud I am." Emmanuel read the note with shaking hands. "My dear son Emmanuel, you have made me the proudest mother in the world. Even when you were ashamed of me, I never stopped loving you. I know you think I came to that event to embarrass you, but I just wanted to see your success with my own eyes before God calls me home. I forgive you for denying me. A mother's love never dies. Your Mama Grace." Emmanuel's expensive walls seemed to close in on him. For the first time in 25 years he really looked at his mother. He saw how old and sick she had become. He saw the love in her tired eyes, the same love that had worked 3 jobs to feed him, that had sold her wedding ring for his future. "Mama," he whispered, and his voice broke like a little boy's. Grace smiled through her tears. "There's my son. I knew you were still there." Emmanuel fell to his knees and hugged his mother for the first time in decades. They both cried until there were no more tears left. The next day, Emmanuel called a press conference. This time, Grace sat beside him on the stage, wearing a beautiful new dress her son had bought for her. "I want to tell you all the truth," Emmanuel said to the cameras. "This woman is my mother. She raised me alone after my father died. She sacrificed everything for me, and I was too proud to remember that." He turned to Grace. "Mama, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for denying you. I'm sorry for being ashamed of where I came from. Can you forgive me?" Grace took his hand. "My son, I forgave you before you even asked." Emmanuel announced that he was giving half of his wealth to help poor mothers like Grace. He built a foundation called A Mother's Love, and made Grace the honorary chairwoman. Most importantly, Grace moved into Emmanuel's mansion. Every morning she would make him gari and stew just like when he was little. And every night before bed, Emmanuel would sit with his mother and listen to her stories about the old days. The man who almost lost everything by denying his mother had learned the most important lesson of all. Success means nothing without love, and no amount of money can replace a mother's heart. Grace lived 3 more beautiful years, surrounded by her son's love and the respect of a whole nation who had watched their story unfold. And when she finally went to rest, Emmanuel made sure the whole world knew, everything good in me came from this woman. She was my mother, my hero, and my greatest teacher. The boy from Mushin had finally come home. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a comment, like and share to your friends and family for them to learn from this story.